All right, folks, audio testing as we always do. Let me know, Dan, if you can hear me clearly or if I am a little. All right, folks. Oh, I can hear me. Okay, we'll be in just a second, guys. Let me know, Dan, if you can. All right, everybody. Happy Wine Wednesday. I guess a few of you already know who's my guest is because I see all of you in the chat, and so this is very cool. Let me get him up on widescreen. Didn't think to do that really quickly, and then we should be good. Sorry. Oh my goodness. Of course. Here we go. We'll get there in 1 second. Okay.
Hey, hello. How's
There
it
we
going?
are. All right. And everybody, I hope now can see him. And so we'll get right to it. I won't, whine around with you. And I will just introduce my guest today, Moiki, correct?
Almost. Moki. Yep.
Moki. Oh, geez. And
What
well, I know him as the Inappropriate Reefer, one of my absolute favorite, not only YouTube creator channels, but also someone who, I love watching because he's always talking about and sharing his experiences and getting us to really think instead of trying to pretend to know it all. So, why don't you start us off by just telling us how you got started to begin with aquariums? What got you
Yeah,
started?
absolutely. Hey, first of all, thank you for having me on, Kelly. I love your channel. I always wanted to keep seahorses, and I had kind of a macroalgae tank in the past, so this I love it. All right, so a little backstory for me. So I grew up in Hong Kong until 12, and in Hong Kong, a lot of people keep fish and bird because they don't take up a lot of floor space, and in Hong Kong, it's really packed. Houses small, so that kind of paint the picture. So ever since I was a kid, I've kept fish. And usually every single Saturday, my grandmother would take me to this place in Hong Kong called the Fish Street. Now, the Fish Street is basically a long couple blocks of street, all lined with all kinds of different fish stores. There's like, it runs a whole gamut. You got like legit marine stores at the second floor, and then you got like on the first floor, you got all these freshwater fish with like, they'll bag up the fish in the morning and hang them on the wall. So
Oh,
what it
wow.
is that you go up, yeah, you look at a fish that you want, you just grab the bag, you pay for it, and you go. And
Wow.
it's nuts. They even have discus in these backed up things. So yeah, it's crazy. So I grew up in that environment, and I've always been into fish, but freshwater fish. Now, fast forward to me moving to the US, and I was in college. And one day, me and a friend decided to visit a local fish store for some freshwater fish. We were it's like, oh, it would be cool to start a fish tank. Um, and then, and then, as we walked in, the first thing we saw was a reef tank. And the reef tank, there's a skeleton of a sea urchin, just like a sea urchin skeleton, and a bicolor blenny just kind of perching on it and just
Oh,
looking at
wow.
us. And we were sold. We're like, all right, we gotta make this happen. I don't know how to do a reef tank, but we're gonna find out.
Yeah.
So we talked to the store owners, and he hooked us up and told us kind of what to do, and we just kind of snowballed from there.
Now I'm curious. I do hear a little echo. You guys, if there are any audio problems, let me know. But anyhow, I'm curious. Do you, or when you went, when you said that your first experience with the actual saltwater fish came from you saw them, fell in love, wanted to do it. Did you get good advice from the fish store?
Let me tell you, the funny thing is, the fish store employee, he was teaching us how to make salt, and then he actually dipped a finger into the fish tank and it tasted it, and be like, yeah, if it tastes like this, okay.
Oh no! See,
But
that's
we talked to a couple more people, and then we were turned on to a hydrometer. But for the most part, the advice was good enough that we were able to get a reef tank up and running. Of
gotcha.
course, like back then, at least like in the circle that we get in touch with, like we didn't know about like our DI water. We were using tap water, which was fine. I've been using tap water for like 10 plus years. I just constantly had algae issue, and I thought that was just like a given. With reef tank, I was like, okay, algae, whatever. So I learned to deal with algae pretty well. It's not until I was turned on to our DI water maybe like 3 years ago that I was like, oh my goodness, it's actually pretty simple if I want to keep simple corals. Yeah, but in terms of advice, back then, not so much. But I would say in the recent years, I do get some pretty solidly good advice from local fish store. And
Right.
there are a couple of people that I actually come to trust locally when I go into fish stores.
Oh, that's so good to hear because that's
Yeah.
one of the big deals with seahorses is that you'll find them at local pet shops, but they really don't know how to care for them. So I'm so glad to hear, and I've noticed it too. Actually, I've noticed a change. They're starting to come around. They're starting to hire and employ people that know what they're talking about and really share good information. So that's always good. Okay, I do have to keep checking my notes. He brought all these people into chat, so you guys are making me a tad nervous, but he said you're all cool. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. And all right, when you were starting out, when you did start getting advice and you started the reef tank, did you have any particular role models? Like, were there any specific people or tanks that you saw that you just said, I want to do that. I want to be like him or her?
Really great question. Um, there's one in particular that came to mind, and this is kind of old school. I think it's called the Oregon Reef. It's either 350 gallon or 500 gallon. It was beautiful. It was back in the days before I really got into watching YouTube and stuff. It was a website. I think it's called the Oregon Reef. It's just like a huge tank with two huge island with a valley in the middle that fish can swim
Mm-hmm.
through. Took some beautiful picture. He also has I think it's like a 350-gallon cold water tank.
Oh, wow.
That was absolutely my inspiration. I'm pretty sure I would not get to that point because that reef is meticulous. It's beautiful. But I would say early on that is my inspiration. And later on, well, not around that same time, I started reading a lot of wet. Let me see if I can pronounce this. Wet Pets Media from Bob Fenner. Like he has a
Oh,
lot of.
wet web media. Yes.
Yes. I'm sorry
Or
about
it
that.
might be
Yeah.
wet pets. No, you might be
No,
right. Go
you're
ahead.
right. I think you're right.
Okay.
But it's just like all the interesting questions people ask and interesting answers that Bob answered with. It just kind of it's like mind blowing. I'm like, oh wow, there's stuff like this out there. I can't wait to go get into it if possible. Yeah,
Right.
so I would say like those two are really big inspiration in the beginning.
Gotcha. I mean, I couldn't agree more. And now I'm going to throw you a question that
Oh,
wasn't on
please,
the,
yeah,
it
yeah.
wasn't on the list, but I'm
No,
just
just
curious.
yeah, please stop.
Guys, I will let you guys come in and ask questions and join us here in just a second. Just got to get my questions out first, you know. But I'm just curious. This came to me as you were talking. And a lot of times, you know, like I can agree with and relate with everything you just said. And being a YouTube creator yourself, who does constantly say that you're not a, you know, you're not a professional, you're sharing your experience. We'll get into your YouTube career in just a moment. I'm sorry to jump ahead, but
No
it just
worries.
kind of fit. I was just curious how you feel about um, the social media age, meaning it's awesome that you, I, people like us can share our experiences, but in a lot of cases, people get on and try to know everything and give bad advice. So I was just curious if you still, like, when you particularly yourself go to find advice. Obviously, you probably go to your Reef squad, which we'll talk about in a second. But would you go to a forum or would you go to Facebook? Is my question. Sorry, that was a long one.
No, it's
But
good. It's a great question. I mean, there's many ways to answer this. So I'll answer this first. In terms of me searching for information I need, um, besides asking my immediate friends that I trust around the area, I would search forum first, like Reef to Reef and stuff like that. Um, because I feel like simply because like on Facebook, I feel like there's no easy way to really search
mhm,
for previous informations versus on forum is really easy to categorize and read. And because all these interaction took place in the past, if there's any discussions, any debates, it usually has already happened. And I can kind of see which way the conversation went and then decide whether it's advice I want to follow or not. Versus on Facebook, usually when I see things, advice being given is in real time, meaning that the information I read at that moment may not be the finalized version that most people agree with. It's just what I read at the moment. Um, Now that's the first part of the question in terms of like looking for information. I will go to forums, right? Uh, and I will try to find information that's more closer to present days. Now the second part about social media, I absolutely believe is a double-edged sword, and that is also why I'm super careful, especially now. A little bit more people started to notice my content. I'm really careful about what I say,
mhm.
because just because somebody has a lot of views on videos does not necessarily mean that whatever that person says is true. Like that falls super true for some of my videos as well. And that's one thing I've been trying to do as well. If I notice certain people, they give good advice, they have good content. A couple of people come to mind. I do whatever I can to make sure those content, those great information come to the top. But that also falls on me to make sure that, okay, I need to be able to distinguish that this guy is actually making good content. It's not just that he sounds smart.
Mhm.
So it takes a little, you got to do a
Sure.
little background research as well. So I think social media is great in terms of spreading information, but you touch on it, like how do we make sure that the good information get to the top? And that's why I brand my channel as more entertainment than information.
Sure.
The only information I give is only the stuff that I have been through multiple times that I'm sure of, or that I have confirmation from people with experience that I trust. Otherwise, I usually preface it by saying that this is how I do it.
Mhm.
Before you do it, make sure you do proper research first.
Yeah, and I actually you that is the absolute perfect answer. So great. Couldn't agree more. I do want to tell everybody watching that he noticed me right away. Just saying. I give good information. Just kidding. I'm kidding. But okay, so on to YouTube because I see a lot of questions coming. I'm going to get you guys, I promise. Onto YouTube. What kind of challenges did you face in starting up, and what was your objective in doing the YouTube?
Okay, I'll kind of
And
reverse it.
Instagram. Sorry. Go ahead.
Sure, I'll kind of reverse it first. All right.
Go ahead.
My objective on YouTube initially is pretty much just documenting what I've been doing.
Hmm.
I had this habit of filming things and taking pictures. It annoys my friends around me. So even before this fish tank YouTube channel, I had like a different YouTube channel
Yes.
that I went into, like paintballing, lion dancing, like hiking, pet keeping, just a lot of random stuff. I just kind of jammed them all in. So when it comes time for me to get back into the hobby and get starting this 45-gallon tank off, I figure instead of adding to that channel, because that channel also has some fish keeping stuff, why don't I
Hmm.
just create a separate channel for my friends who actually care about fish keeping? and I'll
Right.
just talk to them there. This way, it doesn't annoy people that's not interested. So it's the channel started out from there, but eventually, I think like every year or so, it kind of recreate itself, and kind of, because like for example, okay, after year one, I realized that it's not just my friend that look at my videos anymore. There are some other people that come in and start giving me advice. So
Couple of
I
you.
kind of I kind of recalibrated, be like, okay, like what is this channel about? So I find myself kind of just not, it's not so much rebranding, but it's kind of like I kind of think of the channel differently each year on what is it about? What do I want to work on next? Is it still interesting? Do I still want to do it? So that's kind of my approach towards YouTube. In terms of Instagram, to be honest, it's kind of like a afterthought. Like YouTube is still my bread and butter, right?
Mhm.
That's where I dedicate most of my time. Instagram is more like, okay, I have something happening in my tank right now, and at that stage when I started Instagram, I started putting out video on YouTube once a week. It used to be 2 or 3 times a week, but the editing became so much that I can only do one video a week.
Right.
So in cases where I need like immediate feedback, I can't wait that once a week, right? Corals may be dying. So I turn to Instagram. I just snap a picture. I just post something, ask for advice, and I get a lot of sound advice back. So that's kind of like my way of using YouTube and Instagram. On YouTube, I try to tell a story. On Instagram, I give people like really quick update, but usually paying people with a question, and hopefully in the process, other people may find it interesting and may like get something out of it as well. So you'll
Gotcha.
see a lot of like frequent small updates on Instagram, where YouTube is still once a week.
Gotcha. Very good. Okay, and they're going crazy wanting to ask questions, so I'm going
Oh
to
yeah,
skip
yeah, totally.
most of the things that I wanted to ask because they will probably ask them. But let's see. I'm so sorry. I do have to ask about the frogfish. I will just ask all the questions as one, and you can tell your story. So, what made you want a frogfish? Did you ever figure out what happened? And will you ever get another? Go ahead.
Oh man, that's a loaded question. Hold on,
I
I need
know.
more wine first.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? Actually, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Back up 1 second. What are
All
you
right, backing up.
drinking? What are you drinking this evening? What is your wine of choice? Is the real question. Somebody
Yes,
said it
ma'am.
looks like Gatorade.
They caught me. Okay, so
Oh.
no. Okay, so to be completely honest, I am not a wine drinker, but I want
Okay.
to be on here, so I'm drinking wine.
You
So
didn't have to fake. Go ahead.
all right, so I dug around my fridge to see what I have, and when Emily was here half a year ago, we bought this to try. I know
Hey.
you guys probably shaking your heads like, oh my god, what is this? But
No.
this is my first time trying it. It's actually quite good. But in terms of actual wine choice, I like to drink plum wine.
Okay.
And if I have to pick between like red wine, white wine, some red wine is nice, but I consistently go to white wine, like Riesling, something sweet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I'm trying to get more into the red wine world because I feel like in the future, um, there will be many situations where I should
Right.
know some of the basics of wine.
Right.
So I may have to like hit you up for help, not just for seahorses and macroalgae, maybe for wine as well in the future.
Well, hopefully, excuse me, hopefully by then I'll know because I was exactly the same person. I was like, ooh, it's got to be sweet, it's got to be Riesling or Moscato or something like that. But the more that I got advice from different wine people
Mm-hmm.
and learn different things, now I can literally pick out just by reading the back of a label what type of wine
Wow.
I want and how it'll go with certain things. It's really cool. But anyhow, okay, so on to the frogfish. That's what people really want to know. Tell me about,
Sure.
and what was his name? I'm sorry. I don't want to mispronounce
Mochi.
it. Mochi.
Mochi.
Okay,
Yep.
okay.
All right.
Go on.
So I got a little story to tell you guys
Okay.
about Mochi the frogfish. When I got my first job in the U.S., I worked near a local fish store that I visit very often. I'll say every other day. So one day they got this huge macroalgae tank, right? One day I saw like a tiny, like really small, like a thumb size white frogfish, wart skin frogfish, just like Mochi. And back then I wasn't making a lot of money, and I still remember it was on sale for $89, and that was a lot of money. That was a lot of money. So I just visited that little guy for a couple of weeks, and one day
Aw.
he was sold, and that was it. That stuck with my mind. I think like besides the bicolor blenny, that was the other fish that really stuck with me. So fast forward to I think right now it's 2.5 years ago. I had the opportunity to test out one of these lights. It's the ONF Flat One light. It's really sleek looking light. It works great. But with that light, I need a tank to go with it. Basically, I don't want to put it over the 45. So I was able to get a drop-off tank. I bought a drop-off tank, and I thought, okay, I got this like 17-gallon tank. What can I keep in there? I don't want to keep clownfish because I have one. I have a pair in the 45 already.
Mm-hmm.
So frogfish just came to mind because like it would be kind of cool for the frogfish to kind of like crawl from like the upper deck to the lower deck and stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, that just how it came to be. So I had been on the lookout for a wart skin frogfish for I think half a year.
Wow.
One showed up. Actually, two showed up on Diver Stand Live Aquaria, and I miss it every single time. I always miss it. People who message me say, "Hey, there's one on there. Go right now!" Every single time, once I get there, it's too late. So we got them already. However, thank you to the people who were on Instagram. Immediate response. Somebody immediately messaged me, say, "Hey, you know what? One of my somebody local to me is selling one at my local reef club on this forum." So I reached out. Yeah, I was in Michigan. I talked to the guy. He was willing to sell frogfish for $100 with like $50 shipping. So it's $150 shipped, which is pretty much the same as Live Aquaria. So I got him, but that was not without drama because the day I got him, I was at work, and so I had it shipped to my parents' place. And around noontime, my mom called me in a panic saying that I don't know what this is. Well, she knows the fish. I don't know what's going on, but the box is wet. I'm like, what?
Oh.
So I had her open the box, pulled it out. The back, there was literally no water.
Oh.
So I talked to my work. And they were like, yeah, just go home. Just go home right away. They're super nice. And I went home. Sure enough, the back was clinging to the fish. There's not even water enough for the fish to swim. It just kind of clinged to the fish. And there's a tiny pocket of water right at the head of Mochi. And he was gasping big time, so it was really close. I feel like any less, it would have been too late. But that was how I got Mochi. I ended up keeping him for close to a year. And he was like the size like this, around here, and he grew to about this size. He got to a decent size, and randomly just passed away around a 1 year mark. And that is something that is known to wart skin frogfish. On Reef Central, there's this really popular thread called the Frogfish File, and that's just like a recurring theme. Wart skin frogfish, really hard to pass 1 year mark. So initially I thought maybe it's because of the diet, right? Like maybe we're feeding improper diet. So I tried to mix up a little bit. I got some great advice from guys like Richard. I will gut load the ghost shrimp and feed them, and I also feed damsels once in a while, thinking it'll kind of round out the diet. But it was still not good enough. At 1 year mark, just like clockwork, he passed away. So to be honest, I really don't know what's going on. However, the body of Mochi is going to sound a little bit morbid. It's actually with my friend Telegram Jim. He has it in the freezer with his diamond goby because he has some friends that know how to do autopsy to see what's going on with the fish, why they pass.
Wow.
So to this day, it's still in his freezer. We're not sure if it's worth pulling the body out at this point, but it's there. But to answer your question, yeah, honestly, I don't really know. I still guess maybe it's improper diet and not balanced diets, but
Gotcha.
I don't know.
Well, first I want to say thank you so much to whoever your employer was at that point, because that's so awesome that you were able to keep him for a year because of the fact that they let you rush home. Second,
Absolutely.
I will admit very, very morbidly myself that I have seahorses in the freezer. I absolutely do. Sometimes it's because I want to know what was wrong with them. Sometimes it's just because they were my favorite and I won't let them go. Weird. I don't care. I love them. And so, I feel you. Would you ever do another frogfish?
I swore to myself that I would not, simply because of the feeding is so demanding. Even though I have a freshwater tank just to keep the ghost shrimp alive on the side, right? So I'm gonna have to keep going back to the fish store, but I still find myself at the store like almost weekly, and it's not a good feeling to try to pick out a damsel to feed to the frogfish. I mean, yes, feeder fish, fine, but I mean, in the back of my mind, still like, oh, I wish I don't have to do this. So these are the things that's kind of keeping me. However, 3 weeks ago, I was at House of Tropical. I did see a baby one, and I was this close. I even got to the point where I asked an employee to feed the frogfish some baby ghost shrimps just to see if he eats. Unfortunately, or fortunately, it did not eat. The shrimp was literally crawling on his head. I'm like, all right, I'm not gonna risk it. So I did not. But I don't know. I feel like if I do see another one, I may do an impulse purchase, even though in my mind I'm like, ah, let's not do it. We've done it.
So we'll
Yeah,
see another
we'll see.
frogfish.
Maybe if I see another one.
Okay.
Although this time, if I were to get one, I would like to do the yellow and maroon one. So there's like two color morph. One is white and
Oh,
maroon. One is
okay.
yellow and maroon. Just so that is not completely the same as
Right.
Richie.
Right.
Yeah.
There's certain seahorses for me that I might get the species again, but they will always be the one. You know, you
I
can't
hear you.
replace that. So, and everyone's asking. I guys, I literally had so many questions. It's not funny. He said we could talk for 5 hours. So I'm going to ask what they are
Let's
all
go.
asking in the questions, and then I'll kind of let you guys come on in if you want. But everyone would like to know about the 150. What's going
Oh boy.
on? Tell
Okay.
me.
So when it comes to 150, I'm hating life. I thought it'd be
Oh,
awesome. I thought it would be glorious. It would be up in 2 months. Oh no, it's almost half a year at this point. So I'm working. I'm working on the second stand. So I rebuilt the stand because the first one it may not be strong enough.
right.
Simply because the tank dimension is a little bit abnormal. It's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of weight at 4 foot by 2 foot. Because normally it's
Right.
75 gallon, right? This one is like two stack. So I
And I saw
reinforced
your
the top.
floor problems too. Go on. I'm sorry.
Oh
Go on.
man, no, that's cool. Yeah, so recently we found out that the joust, instead of like spanning multiple jousts, is actually like it basically is not the way that we want the tank to sit.
Right.
But I think at this point I'm just gonna go for it. We're gonna test fill the tank and see if the force sags. If not, we're good to go. If it is, then hey, we may have to find a different place. But in terms of stand building, I'm at a point that the structure is good. I'm in the process of wrapping the stand. So we got the top plate on. We're gonna do magnetics. I don't know. We're gonna attach the side panel magnetically to the structure.
Mm-hmm.
So that should probably happen this week. And
Okay.
then in my mind, the rest should go pretty quickly. Like painting, straightforward. I don't have to do math. I hate math. Um, and then plumbing. I got some friends like DC Reefer that said they can come over and help me do it. So I think that'll be great. So I feel like with these guys, I think like one visit from them should kind of just iron everything out.
Well,
So
send them my way when you're done because I'm telling you what, I actually have felt your pain with my 90-gallon grow out.
yeah.
I did my best to build a stand. They all made fun of me. They said it would hold a truck, but it looks terrible. And then the plumbing, I thought I did such a great job and it failed. So good job getting
Oh
help.
man.
I mean, good job getting help, really. Okay, and I guess my final questions are. I have three more guys, and then I'll be done. What are you planning for the 150? Are you putting like your favorite coral, favorite fish? What are your plans? Do you have any yet? What are your goals for that tank?
It keeps changing as time goes on. I'll tell you. Initially, which I'm coming back to now, is going to be a mixed reef,
Okay.
focus on LPS softies, a little bit of SPS. I thought about going full out SPS just to see what that world is like, but then I realized I'm not responsible enough for it. I'm not ready for that life, so it's going to be a mixed reef. However, one interesting thing about this 150 I'm trying to do is to do a shadow box in the back. Thanks to
Ooh.
my friend Mari for suggesting it. So I'm testing something similar on my 45 and on my Planet Tank right now. Current USA recently came out with the Serene light kits. One interesting thing is that they give you a frosted film in the back and a
Hmm.
light strip in the back to give you that kind of like backlit effect, which translates to depth, right? It makes the tank look much deeper than what it actually is. And while doing research on building a shadow box a while back, that was actually one of the comments that I read from one of the creator. They said that they didn't even need to put all those like shadow or spray paint stuff to make it appear there's stuff in the shadow. Just the fact that putting up a acrylic sheets and a light shining from the back gives it the illusion of depth already. The other thing is kind of extra. So that's why when I saw that Current USA came up that thing, I was like, oh, that's piqued my interest. So when they kind of talked to me about it, I'm like, sign me up. So that's
Yeah.
one thing I'm definitely doing on the 150. In terms of livestock, I really want to try a full-blown lionfish in a reef. It's either lionfish or a puffer fish. Um, Although after visiting Japan, for maybe a week or two, I was tempted to just do a garden eel tank with the 150 because it's
Oh
tall enough.
yeah.
It's a 31-inch height. So even when I put in like an 8-inch or 10-inch sand bed, I feel like we still got enough vertical room. But at the same time, I was like, okay, you know what? Feeding garden eel in such a huge tank, that's gonna the water's
Right.
gonna be dirty. So I quickly scrapped that idea. I think I'll just stick to a mixed reef. I do actually that's something I want to talk to you down the road. I'm really wanting to do a garden eel slash seahorse tank, maybe even slash shrimp fish in a really tall tank, maybe like a
Yay!
35-inch tall by like 24 by 24 something.
You guys,
But that's
you guys, he can't see me doing my dance over here. We're gonna do seahorses. Okay, I'm sorry. Go on. I didn't mean to
yeah.
interrupt. Go ahead.
No. Because I feel like they go all kind of slow. I'm not sure if they're 100% compatible, which I'm gonna pick a brain a little bit later. I
Yeah.
know Mindy's also kept some garden eel, so I would love to pick her brain too. But that is something that I absolutely want to do. I've been wanting to do seahorse for a long, long time. Um, I think equipment-wise, I have them. I have the equipment. Since it's macroalgae, I don't think I will go with sump. I'll just let the macroalgae take care of the excess nutrient. Um, Not sure if it's enough, but
Right.
we'll talk about
Well,
that.
yeah, we're gonna talk later. No worries on
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
Okay.
we'll talk about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll help any way I can. And
Awesome,
there is no right answers. You know what I'm saying? We'll figure it out all together.
cool.
I've got, absolutely. And everyone keeps jumping in. They want to know about the shrimp tank. Can you tell me anything? I don't know what they want to know. Shrimp tank, shrimp tank, shrimp tank.
Hold on.
DD.
There could be two answers. One is my 9-gallon planted tank. Is that what you guys are talking about?
Anybody
That's
answer? Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm not sure if there's a delay. There may be like a couple minute delay.
Yeah, I know. I
so
know.
so
Sorry.
it's, so it's either that 9-gallon planted tank, which is going well now. Finally, I'm kind of letting things grow out, or something may have leaked. Maybe I should just show you guys.
Uh-oh.
All right, nobody saw this. Not even on my Instagram.
Uh-oh. Nobody saw this.
So I got this tiny guy right here that has been pretty popular on Instagram recently.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm thinking about turning this into a freshwater shrimp tank.
Oh.
And I have like all the decor and stuff set already, but it'll be kind of cool. I'm kind of testing this out to see if this would make a legitimate reef tank. But my worry is that as water evaporate, the swing may be too much. So I'm not 100% sure. But for a freshwater tank, I think this should be good for like a shrimp tank. Obviously, it's a little bit too small for fish. So I'm not sure if they are talking about this little guy right here or the 9-gallon tank that I got going downstairs.
They are saying the 9-gallon, but I will tell you, Felicia McCulley and many others actually do like these reef vases and reef bowls, and I'm sure you'll do fine with freshwater because they're doing crazy great things in very small situations. So it's really cool. But yeah,
So
9-gallon. Go ahead.
yeah, funny you mentioned that because I actually tried a reef jar.
You did? Oh,
For the so back then there was that the Rico Nano Challenge. I'm not sure if that's still
yeah.
going on.
I know.
So my first entry was a reef jar,
Oh no.
and it worked. I mean, it worked. Things are growing, but I hated it because the jar I picked, the shape is so it distorts everything. Everything is so magnified. I hated it, and I just let it run for about 3 months. I just stopped. But I actually bought. I just bought her book as well. Not book, the magazine. I think it's Marisa, right? She did a special on her reef jar teaching people how to set one up. And I actually bought that Coral magazine. I read through it, and she is a wealth of information. Great person.
Awesome. I'm sorry. I thought you were still. I'm sorry. I thought you were still.
Oh, no.
I'm trying to read comments too at the same time. Apologies.
Oh, I know how tough it is. Yeah,
Okay. Well, you guys, I will go through the comments and let you join in. I got those last two questions. All right. So my last two questions are: first, if you had to pick one coral that you think is not only your favorite, but that you would like advise others to get because you love it so much, what would it be?
Frog spawn. Absolutely.
How did I know that? How did I know that? And you know what? I agree. I love the frog spawn, and I love yours. Yours is awesome. Someday I'm gonna need a little frag. Okay, and the last question is, if anybody was trying to get into, this is a double question, and then I will let anybody else ask. The double question is, what advice, if you had to give one piece of advice to someone trying to start a reef tank or trying to get into YouTube? Very different questions, I know, but I'm trying to throw them out there. So what would you tell to those people in general? and then I'll let everybody else come in.
Okay. For reef tank, take your time. I know this is such a cliche answer, but holy crap, take your time and use RODI water. I did not know what I was missing. I was using tap water for a long, long time. Life was so much easier with RODI water. And bonus, if you have a small tank, invest in a auto top-off system. The reason, twofold, okay? Number one, dumping water in the tank sucks. Number two, it keeps your parameter so much more stable, especially when you have a small tank. As water evaporates, your salt levels naturally go up, right? And then the whole environment is not stable, and it's not great for corals or just livestock in general. With a auto top-up system, things are just so much easier and more stable, and things just seems healthier. Now with YouTube, I love talking about YouTube because I feel like within I guess like our reefing community, we didn't really dig into it as much as like other sector does. I know like Corey, like Aquarium Co-op, he goes really deep into it. Infamous Aquatic, he does as well. But I feel like in general, we don't talk too much about it. But for YouTube, if I can only give one advice, I would say be persistent. Your growth rate is not going to be constant. It's not going to be a slope like this. It's going to be like this, flatten out for a while, and then go up, flatten out, go up, flatten out for a long time. And many times I would look at my channel. I was like, oh, the view's not there, subscribers not growing that fast. I'm just kind of spinning in place. But then I remind myself that, hey, you know what? I'm not creating the video for the views. I'm creating it because I enjoy it. I mean, at this point right now, I actually enjoy doing editing. So I enjoy doing editing. And I thought it's fantastic when people watch a video. It's kind of validation. It's like, oh, the stuff I'm making, people actually watch it.
Yeah.
So even if like the view sometimes does not go up or even drop off, but I'm still blessed. People are still watching my stuff. Like even if it's like one person watching it, that's one person that spent 10 minutes of his day or her day watching your stuff. So when I thought of that kept me going. And usually as I keep my head down and work hard and just keep pumping out content, sometimes things you just put out a video, just kind of for whatever reason, just bump up, right? And just bump you up a little bit. And then all of a sudden, oh, you're kind of relevant again, right? And then for a while, you climb. All of a sudden, okay, maybe people got bored of you. You didn't change your format, right? You talk about the same thing, and then you plateau again. But again, head down, just keep grinding out. Eventually, good opportunity happens again. So if there's one thing, I say just keep at it. Just keep at it. Don't expect miracle. Unless it's very special, only very special few can just kind of pop up like that.
Sure.
But for most people like me, just head down, hard work, be consistent, and you'll get there.
That's awesome. And I will tell anybody watching that he actually approached me when I was first making videos and said, I really love your channel. I want to help you. I want to show your videos. And I totally flopped due to insecurities. So I don't have any right to give any advice, but I'm going to give it too. And you're going to see my channel change a bit. I'm going to stop being scared to put out content because it's ridiculous. I just, people want to know and enjoy watching, us all learn together. And I don't know. Thank you for the advice because it's very good. And your channel has motivated me personally in many ways. And so I'm so thankful that you came on here and that you continue making great videos. So
hey, thank you. I don't want to call it advice. It just I'm just sharing my journey, where I came from. Yeah, I feel like we don't really talk about this part of making YouTube video for like fish tank and stuff like enough. I feel like this is a really interesting topic as well.
I mean, if you have something else to say before I let people join, feel free. But okay.
Okay. The other big piece that I think
yes, please.
Interesting to look at is thumbnails and title. I didn't really pay too much attention to thumbnails and title until maybe the second year mark, and that made a huge difference. So definitely spend more time on thumbnails and title. All
right, guys, you heard it. Thumbnails and title. And what exactly do you mean? I mean, I understand what that means, but I don't know. First of all, let me know if, I'm sorry, you can't see this part. I'm trying to also send a link out. I think I have to go to YouTube and turn it into a YouTube link. If anybody wants to try it, feel free.
Let me check the comment too.
But also, I just wanted to say, I know obviously what YouTube. I'm sorry. I obviously know what tags and titles and stuff mean. And a friend of mine that was trying to help me to begin with explained how you can get like that tube create or tube buddy or whatnot to show you tags that are working and things like that. But you're saying that the most important thing is like the titles and making sure that the thumbnails look good.
Yeah, I think like for my channel, that made a huge difference.
Okay.
Just imagine like when people scroll through their feed, they have all these different options to look at, right? All these different videos. Yours has to stand out in some way, whether it's high contrast or interesting subjects, or you have a certain branding that you do. And same thing with title. Title is really important as well. And this is like a whole huge discussion. And I don't think there's any like solid answer, but to just experiment and see what works for you. In terms of like tag and stuff like that, I'm slowly getting into it. Like at this point, I really hate the analytic part of YouTube, even though I find it intriguing. But to actually dig into the read, I like the thumbnail, those part, right? I feel like, oh, it's creative. But if I have to dig into data, I hate that portion. But slowly I'm getting to it. And my friend, Infamous Aquatic, Anthony, he's a whiz when it comes to it. So he's been helping me with it. So to his point, it absolutely makes a difference, like to pick the proper keywords and whatnot. But I definitely do not know enough to share anything. But I think he may be an interesting person for you to invite on if you're interested in doing a little bit more.
Oh yeah, yeah, I know.
Stuff.
I absolutely, and I love hearing all sorts of, I really want to do a lot more. I'm sorry, I'm talking and trying to do things at the same time. That never works out for me very well. All right, but I'm definitely interested. I will hit you up after this for that information because I would love to have him on. I
Awesome.
love showing all sorts of different people. Okay, guys, I do have the link now. Now let me figure out where to put it.
Oh,
I will. One moment. All right. Okay, so here is the link if you want to join. If not, I am going to just continue talking and asking questions. Let me know if it works though, guys. And
come in,
if you want to come in, come in. If not, I'm going to keep talking.
Oh, keep asking questions.
And
go for
it. Okay. All right. Well, now I've got to peek down at my questions because I was rushing so much. I know I had a bunch.
Oh, you got a great list.
I know, man. I should post my list because it was. I'm pretty proud of it. But
it was a good list. It was good questions.
Yeah. All I know is with the Planet tank. Do you? Actually, that's a good question. That wasn't on the list. Do you think your freshwater tanks or saltwater tanks are more difficult?
Freshwater tank kicks my butt.
Yeah.
Saltwater tank, I can kind of understand where if things go wrong, I can kind of know what's going on. Freshwater tank, I'm just in the dark, man. I turn to my Instagram friends a lot. Thank you to all of you guys on Instagram that's helping me out my freshwater tank. A lot of people can't believe the fact that I do decent with saltwater and I'm struggling with freshwater.
No,
it's different. It's different. It's totally different. But the good thing about freshwater is that the plant grows quick. Unlike some of the corals, it takes a while to see results. Usually, if you do something, they respond within a week or two. So that's a good part. I don't have to wait a long time. And of course, it costs. It's like one fifth, I think, of what I'm paying for saltwater.
Right. Well, I know I'm actually right there with you. Watching your channel and watching some of your videos, I miss my Planet tank so much. I had a beautiful discus planted. Oh my God, it was beautiful. It was amazing. And I gave it up for saltwater. And saltwater is definitely easier. So I have it easier. But every time I watch your channel, I want to go back. I really do.
Hey, time to get out of the tank, right? Why not?
I know. Actually, I was looking at some rams today. And I was like, no, don't do it, Kelly. Don't do it. But... Okay, so aside from obviously the frogfish, is there any other fish that you just really adore that you think is really just great for your tanks or fresh or saltwater?
Okay. Let me think. There are a lot. Lionfish I mentioned before. I just feel like they're really majestic. I wouldn't pet one, but I would love to keep one.
Right.
But I'm talking about the I think it's called volatile. I don't know how to pronounce it. The large ones.
Right. See, I had a dwarf, and it was cool. It was my baby, but actually, we will talk later about that one because literally that was the first time I had Caulerpa go sexual, and I lost my lionfish because of algae. So we'll talk later. But anyways, go on.
Sure.
I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
No worries. I like oddball fish, kind of like boxfish, triggerfish, pufferfish. I do really like the porcupine pufferfish, but one thing I don't want to say I can't stand, but I don't really like is that every single one I see, they kind of just come right up to the glass and just it just seems really unnatural. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? It's
I
kind of a weird
do.
thing. Some people like it, but for me, I would rather just kind of see them go about their way naturally.
And yeah.
But I do like those kind of fish, especially the blue box fish from Hawaii. I would love to keep one of those in the future if possible. I know the blue box and the black box, they're like male and female pair. A pair of them would be great. I think the Morse Idol, if I could keep a pair, that'd be fantastic. I think they probably go better as a pair. I know feeding them is really difficult, but it seems like more and more people are having success with them. So eventually, when I get a larger tank, I think I may give that a try if possible. And I think at some point in my life, I would like to try a Commerson frogfish. That's those giants, those huge 1 foot, they look like football
Oh
sized
wow.
frogfish. They'll be easy to feed because like they can actually eat fruit that I buy from Asian markets, like seafood markets,
Right.
versus trying to like keep stuff. Yeah, so that would be interesting as well.
Well,
So the list
sorry.
list goes on. Sorry about that. Go ahead.
No, I interrupted you and I apologize. I was just thinking, I watched one of your videos the other day where I can't remember her name. I'm so sorry, but she was teasing you with the worms. You don't like
Oh,
feeding the
Emily.
live foods, right? Emily, right? Sorry.
No, no, no. Well, shrimp and stuff is good, but I don't do too well with insects and worms. Like I really want to keep like chameleons, but knowing that they eat crickets, live crickets, I just couldn't. And I'm kind of peeking over at the comments. Somebody mentioned
Yes, feel free.
arowana. Asian arowana is one of the top of my list. So, as you know, Asian arowana is illegal in the U.S. It's weird because it's not. They took it off the site list at other countries already. From the U.S., they remain on the endangered species list. But at one point, I thought about moving to Canada just so that I can keep an Asian arowana for a couple of years to try it out. But Asian
Really?
arowana is stingray, yeah, yeah. So in my lifetime, I would like to keep an Asian arowana at some point.
Now, is the Asian arowana is it just that particular species that's not allowed or whatnot? Because I see arowana at
Yes.
stores. Okay, so it's the
So
species. Okay,
exactly. So just Asian arowana is not allowed. Silver arowana, there's a black arowana, a little bit silver arowana, and
okay,
Australia, Jardini. Those are all allowed in the U.S. So it's just the Asian arowana that's not legal here.
gotcha. And that makes sense then because I know I've seen it on DIY King's channel, but he's in Canada, so I
Exactly.
get
The
you.
thing is that the captive breeding program is so successful that like all the fish, all the Asian arowana we see is captive bred. So technically, it's sustainable. But the theory is that U.S. is afraid that if they kind of just lift the ban, so many people is gonna want one that people may just go out to wild and start catching again. So I think that's a
Right.
fear, but
You
it
know,
is what it is.
right.
Yeah,
Matt wants to know what salt you use. I'm sorry,
great
guys. I'm
question.
trying to look at these questions. Sorry. Go ahead.
So I've been jumping around, trying different salts, thinking that they may make a difference. And to be honest, did not really make too big of a difference. At least like from what I'm using them for, simple reef tank like mixed reef. I'm currently using Red Sea blue buckets.
Hmm.
Okay. Here's where the salt make a difference. I was using the Red Sea Coral Pro salts before, thinking that hey, it's pro, right? Let's do it. Got to be good stuff. A lot of people giving good review. I did not know that it has a really elevated alkalinity. When you mix it, I think it's sitting at about 11 DKH, where my tank is about like 8 or 9. So every time I do a water change, basically there's an elk swing. I did not know that.
Oh
Uh,
wow.
so so I switch over to the blue bucket. It's working well, and I think I'm probably gonna go back to Fritz, the RPM, because I feel like parameter is a little bit closer to what I'm keeping my reef tank at currently.
And
Yeah, but for the most part, I'm not super particular when it comes to salts.
funny enough, Fritz at Macna, I don't know. Well, you were there. What am I kidding?
Mm,
That's we saw each other. But they came out with the red box now, so it's funny when you say the blue bucket and the red box. But
yep,
but I love Fritz salt too. They're amazing. Um,
gotcha.
Now, what parameter you said? Go ahead and tell me what parameters you run in your reef tank.
Sure. So for my alkalinity, I'm shooting for 9 DKH,
Okay.
probably like 8.79. Calcium, I try to keep it at like 420, but usually it falls kind of low. I'm still kind of tweaking it. I did not realize how much my clam is taking up
Oh
in terms
yeah.
of calcium. So I'm still tweaking it, but I'm shooting for 420. For magnesium, I'm shooting for was that 1350 if I remember right.
Yes.
But that also
Yes.
fell a little bit low. Yeah. So I'm still kind of trying to get them all in line. For temperature, I'm aiming for 78, but for a stretch I was running at about like 76, which is a little bit lower, and
Okay.
people were surprised. But things were doing good, so it was all right.
Yeah. I mean, the higher temperature to me, and I mean, from what I'm remembering, is typically like for the harder SPS type things. But what do I know? Anyhow, okay, I'm trying to look and see if there's any other questions. Let's see. How many tanks are you running right now? How many
Oh
tanks in
man.
all do you have?
So I'm kind of embarrassed to answer this one.
You know
I
what? You
think
cannot be
five or
worse off
ten.
than me. You can. There's no way. Literally, I'm probably going to be single soon because my significant other is like, no, you. I posted about the gold rams earlier, and I was like, one
Yeah.
more tank, and he said, I'm leaving.
Oh
But
boy.
go ahead. What were you
Okay.
saying?
All right. Let's see. I got 45, 9, 10, 20, 150, and the tiny one. So potentially 6 tanks, full
Wow.
running, and 2 is in the process of being set up. And of
Yeah.
course, if I do end up going for the seahorse and garden eel tank, that's gonna bring a number up. But if I do make that one happen, I'll probably shut one down because I can't do too many. It's
Gotcha.
just way too many.
You're actually very smart. First, I wanted to say, Dan or Alyssa, either of you, if you're still in the audience and want to join, he wants some advice about seahorses and garden eels. Come on in. And nobody did come in, which is fine because I could talk all night. You know, I actually am curious, total side note, but I'm wondering, I did do some practices with Discord this past week, and I'm curious if people would be more likely to come in if it was just their voice and they didn't have to get on camera. Because I can understand not wanting to get on camera, but I have a hard time seeing all the questions and I hate missing them. So if you see any, please feel free to, answer them and whatnot.
Oh,
And yeah, join if you'd like. But I kind of got off on a ramble there. I'm so sorry. But um, yeah, so you were thinking about the seahorses and the eel. Um, I don't know. I got
no
lost in
worries.
translation. I don't know. So what else? What else? What else is going on? Just tell me something that maybe hasn't been seen on Instagram or YouTube. Share a secret with me about your reef keeping. Maybe something you don't tell
Sure.
everybody, or you know.
You sure you want to open it up to me like this? I
Oh
can talk all night.
yeah, we said it was going to be inappropriate. Let's do
All right.
it.
So you guys all saw the little tank. So this is kind of like a fun little project. Sneak peek. So I got this. Some of you guys may know what this is. As a Totoro, so I'm trying to recreate one scene from the anime, where it's kind of like you see him in like this little tree trunk. So it's all really foresty. It'll be interesting. So that's kind of like what's going on in terms of little projects on the side. But one exciting thing that I'm doing now is that. Oh, sorry, I'm seeing some echo in there.
Oh,
So
someone may have
so one
joined. Hang
thing.
on, let me check.
Awesome. Welcome, Dan. I think it's Dan.
Dan,
Welcome, sir.
mute your stuff, please. I'm gonna mute you until you mute your stuff, and then we'll get
It's
back
okay. I
to
talk
it.
this way.
Okay, go
Oh,
ahead,
there we go.
sir. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
All right. No worries, no worries. So one exciting thing for me is that as me and Emily getting a little bit more serious, she lives in Asia. So we're making plan to see each other once a month, which will be a huge challenge. But we're going for it. So what that means is that once a month I can fly somewhere in the world and just see what's happening over there.
Oh wow.
I'm going to Hong Kong next week actually for Thanksgiving. So I plan to visit the Fish Street again, and do some video there. And the following month in December we are going to meet in Canada, in Toronto. So we'll try to meet some. We're going to check out some fish store there, see what's happening. In January we haven't picked a place yet, but most likely somewhere in Southeast Asia. Maybe Sri Lanka, and we'll see what's going on there as well. So one thing I really want to do this coming year is that trying to go a little bit beyond. I don't want to say beyond, but like a little bit upstream in terms of where we get our fish and corals. I'm really curious, how do people collect them, and once they collect it, how are they like being prepared and shipped and stuff like that. And just because I feel like that part of the hobby, well, it's probably a business. That part of the business is, there's a lot of mysteries. I'm really curious.
Yes. A lot of the
And
things. Go ahead. Sorry.
yeah, and I know that Captain Bread is the future.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, I'll be really careful here because there are arguments
Mm-hmm.
saying that sometimes when you captive bred certain species, the carbon footprint just doesn't make sense compared to sustainably collect from the wild.
Right. Nope. I agree. Go on.
I feel like a lot of really logical people that have experience in this department mentioned that certain species absolutely captive bred, but other species that's really there's a lot of in the wild. It may make more sense if it can be done sustainably and without damaging the reef. So I'm really curious to dive a little deeper to see if there's any truth in this, and if so, like what does it look like? What does it mean for the hobby? And especially, I understand that in Hawaii, I think like it's a Snorkel Bob or something like that, is about to drop a video about how the hobby is basically raping the nature for
Oh,
fish and corals and stuff like that. And I respect the view. You know, I respect the view. I
right.
get it. I get it from people who's not in the hobby and seeing it from the outside. And to be honest, I do feel that this hobby is selfish by nature. I'm just being honest here. And that's why it's also up to us to be as responsible as possible and provide the best home as possible since we're doing this. It's just a lot of big questions. I really wanted to find an answer myself with some help from people who are a little bit further along. So that I will probably use this coming year of traveling to see a little bit more of the world and see what's going on outside of our circle
Yes.
and maybe bring some information back.
No, and I can't wait to see and read and whatever, whether you do videos or articles, I can't wait to see and read them because I dove in a little bit when it came to the sustainable acquisition and it's deep. It's a deep
Yeah.
subject. It's very deep, and I don't disagree with you at all. I don't disagree with you at all. I'm going to leave it
It's
there because I don't
yeah,
want to get myself in
it's a
trouble.
touchy
But
subject. It's a really touchy subject. People will be
but
like, it's a touchy subject. Yeah.
well, I mean, but if we actually at MACNA when I was in the Women in Reefing, um, sorry, when I was in the Women in Reefing get together, Paula Carlson, who works for the Dallas Aquarium, just made the point that it's really important that there is more transparency and that the chain of collection is not messed up. I'll just leave it very general in that way because to justify what we are doing and show the benefits that come from aquariums and how captive breeding can change the future in certain cases and how we can sustainably collect, it's really important that we're all transparent and we all talk to each other and share the information. So I can't wait to see what you find out. I wish I could go with you. Emily, I want to come. No, I'm just
Yeah.
kidding, but very cool, very cool. I don't disagree at all. And Dan, are you here? Are you speaking? If Dan comes in, feel free. He wants to know what you think about garden eels. Dan's my seahorse guy, aside from myself, of course, which we'll talk later. But
Ooh, can I ask questions? Can I ask you guys
yeah,
questions?
Dan, are you here? Dan.
Is
Let
he
me
muted or?
let me see. Let's see. He does come and go, so he is not muted. So wait a minute. Is he muted? I'm so sorry. Let's see. Dan, you here?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I had you turned down. Look at that. I'm such a hater. All right. Can I hear you now? Uh-oh, you got turned down again. Are you turning yourself down? Sorry. So sorry. The audio stuff always is a problem. Apologies.
How about now?
Try again.
Have you got me?
I got
Oh,
you.
there we go.
All right. Okay. First off, what do you think of garden eels and seahorses?
I normally don't recommend any eels with seahorses. I'm not real familiar with garden eels, so I can't speak to them specifically.
Okay. Go ahead. You guys talk.
Okay. Then let's talk about seahorses. If you have a kind of like a dream tank around like 60 gallon in terms of water volume, what kind of dimension would you recommend? Like, I assume that you will focus a little bit more on height or?
Everybody focuses on height. I focus more on horizontal space. Horizontal space gives you better exchange with the oxygen. And I find that seahorses use the horizontal space, and all this talk about height. I mean, I've got some very large seahorses in relatively shallow water that breed very easily if there's enough horizontal space. So what you're looking for is a compromise between height and horizontal space. And if I had to choose between the two, I would go horizontal space over height.
Oh, very interesting. Learning something new right now.
Yeah, that's not what you
So,
typically hear, right?
yeah, that's not what I normally hear. So in terms of like actual water volume, right? What would you recommend? What do you think is like a good kind of middle ground? Not something that's still kind of manageable, but not so too small.
Well, the minimum tank we recommend is typically 30 gallons, but if I had the choice, I would be looking somewhere in the 45 to 60 gallon range. To me, would be the ideal tank that's small enough yet you could have a couple of pairs in, and keep things easy with stability.
Got it. Now, how many seahorses could I potentially keep in there? For example, if I want to keep I think it's pronounced erectus, or I'm not
Mm-hmm.
sure I'm pronouncing it right.
It's pretty much the same regardless of the species, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
I generally recommend 25, a minimum of 30 gallons for the first pair, and then an additional 25 to 30 gallons for each pair thereafter. Now, having said that, that's based upon the assumption that you want to do, you want to fall into the averages. When I look at people that have kept the same seahorses for 5 to 10 years, there's a common theme, and one of those is a low stocking density. When you first get the seahorses, the tank is going to look grossly understocked if you buy captive bred. But once they become adults, a year and a half down the road, and they're full grown, it's a whole different ball game. When they're nice big animals.
Got it. Now, so my thought in terms of setting up a potential seahorse tank is not just kind of stock it with a lot of macroalgae, hoping that will be enough for nutrient control. In your experience, let's say if, 2 pairs of seahorses is 4 of them, and say like a 60-gallon tank. Do you feel like the macroalgae would provide enough nutrient export, or should I invest in a sump and a skimmer?
Skimmer definitely, and a sump I would recommend.
Got it. Really cool. Now, let's talk about tank mate a little bit. Are there certain safe tank mate that you think would be okay with seahorses, or?
There is, and the easiest way to do that is to browse the list on either seahorse.org under their library section where they have a tank mate guide, or go to Fuse Jaw, which also has a tank mate guide, and it gives you a good rough estimate. And the thing to remember is the smaller the tank, the more careful you have to be. The larger the tank, the more room you have to, if you're a little daring to try something that goes on the edge of what you should or should not do.
Got it.
Oh,
Can I ask you something more specific about a product that I've been thinking about using? Miracle Mud. Supposedly, it really helps with the pod population. I've not tried it myself, but I feel like since seahorse kind of feed on pods and stuff like that, would that be something that you think is worth looking into? Or
Well, the pod thing is, everybody talks about pods. They start thinking copepods, and copepods really, for the most part, are too small for adult seahorses. It's kind of like you and I eating rice 1 grain at a time. They're just too small, and a lot of seahorses won't even feed on them. And if they do, then you can run into the problem where they can actually starve themselves because there's not enough mass. A seahorse needs to eat somewhere between 5 to 15% of their weight per day.
I see.
I do want to interject just a point very quickly, because there have not been enough or any really widespread tests with the Miracle Mud, and I'm actually testing it myself because it's not just about the pods; it's about the trace elements, it's about the minerals. I have some theories about calcium in seahorses. We'll see where that goes. Dan, is much smarter when it comes to the breeding and the long-term success seahorses, but I'm personally going to say that I think that Miracle Mud can't hurt anything and can possibly help in many ways in a sump. I'm not sure about in the tank. Well, I don't know. Go ahead, Dan.
So,
As far as the Miracle Mud goes, I have to say I don't have any experience with it, and you have to remember that all of my tanks are production tanks, so they're bare bottom systems. So I don't use, I don't have macroalgae in my tank. I don't have Miracle Mud, sand beds, rock, etc. They're production systems.
Mm-hmm.
Having said that, I do work with a lot of customers over the last 15 years on what has worked, what hasn't. Miracle Mud has not been a topic that's really come up very much. As far as the calcium goes, there are studies out there on calcium levels with seahorses, and the studies that I've read has shown that the calcium levels don't make much of a difference.
Got it. Okay, let me kind of like change the topic a little bit. For example, for people like me who's looking into doing some research on seahorses to keep, are there certain species that you'll recommend? And if so, what are the best places to get them?
Well, the best place to get them, I can tell you, I'm a little partial on that.
Sending you home.
Having said that, the best place to get is always directly from a breeder.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're going to a live fish store, you want to ask them questions on their source. And quite often, you know, they have to protect themselves. They're going to be a little coy about it in most instances. And, you know, they're not going to want to tell you where they buy their stuff from. You can buy good seahorses in some live fish stores, but you really need to look at how they take care of the animals, the setups, and, you know, do they have a little cubicle or do they have them in, you know, a separate tank that's set up specifically for display. As far as the species go, really and truly, the key is to find a good captive bred species that's bred here in the U.S., and you're going to be somewhat limited there. Erectus are always in the forefront because they're the easiest probably to keep and breed. And then from there, you're going to see some reed-eye, you're going to see some Bobori, which are imported up from Australia mostly, and maybe some combs, and what else? Some Cuda. We're working on Cuda right now, a couple different species, and occasionally you'll see a couple of others that pop up, but Erectus is probably the #1 seller in the United States because, and it's becoming that way in Europe as well, because they're hardy, they're easy to breed, and they're not only are they hardy, but they also feed so well compared to some of the other species.
Thank you for the plug, by the way. I hope I wasn't interrupting, but there will be an article on Seahorse Whisperer Society, my website, talking about what you would look for as far as problems, getting, you know, asking the pet shop to have them feed the seahorses in front of you. You already mentioned that as far as the frogfish and such, or another animal. Anyway, so there will be an article coming up if you do have to buy from a store, but agree the breeder is always the best route. And I have a question real quick. Sorry to interrupt, but I'll ask both of you. What are your thoughts? I was approached by a company at the Midwest Aquatic Convention who was just licensed to import seahorses from Indonesia. And before you jump me, they are captive bred. I'm also writing articles about how it's bad to release into the wild because, you know, of messing up genetics and all that. But if they're captive breeding in the true sense and not pen raising, what are your thoughts? And that would be on a wholesale basis, not, you know, to public, but I'm just curious what you think about them exporting from Indonesia again. Dan?
You want to go first? Okay, if you want me to go first, well, the Cuda that I'm selling actually came from Indonesia.
Okay.
And I actually did some consulting work for them at a very high level a few years ago when they were looking to get the program off the ground.
Okay.
From what I've seen of what has come in from them, has been top-notch in quality. But if they're the same place, they have a minimum requirement of 300 seahorses per order.
Right. Yeah, there were other requirements. I just wondered about the thoughts because we were actually discussing, you know, the sustainable and the captive breeding. So I just wondered, just kind of throwing it out there. What do you think? Go ahead.
Quality-wise, they were very good.
Good. Do you think? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes. So I'm coming at it from like a hobbyist and consumer perspective. To be honest, like as long as it's done responsibly and the quality is good, like Dan mentioned, personally, it doesn't really matter too much where it came from, to be honest.
Right.
So I see no issue with it as long as it's like done responsibly and quality is good.
When you go out there and start exploring the world and researching, make sure to pay attention to supply chains because they're seriously important. And you know what I was told is that this was a short one. So anyhow, I was just curious. I'm sorry. Did you have some more questions about seahorses? I think it's starting to freeze, and I know I've kept you guys very long. So did you have more questions or anyone in the audience? Go ahead.
I was gonna ask about pipefish as well, but maybe it's getting a little bit too long. I can
No. I mean, no. We usually end up talking for like way a long time after the stream. So, but
oh, is that right?
But no, Dan, do you have any thoughts on pipefish? What was your question? Whether or not to mix them, or
whether or not to mix them, and whether or not they would be. It would be for somebody who's totally new to seahorse. It would be okay to start them at the same time, or should I kind of master one first, and if they're a good tank mate, then kind of add on?
I would suggest mastering one first, and secondly, when you mix signathids are very different than they're fish, but they're very different than fish in many ways. Some obvious and some not so. And one of the ways that they're different is that sometimes when you mix different species of signathids, you end up with one or more getting sick and having problems. And there's no science behind it to explain what happens, but in theory, the common theory is that one has a gut bacteria that they've developed an immunity to, if you will. Their immune system has gotten used to it, and when you mix it with another specimen and they have not got the immunity to it, then they could develop an issue. And you know that goes hand in hand with when you look at the evolution of fish, seahorses do not have the gut-associated lymphoid tissue for the adaptive immunity like regular fish do. So they do have adaptive immunity, although from what I can understand from it, it's very poorly understood, but it's very slow to react. And sometimes mixing different species of seahorses presents problems. Same thing with pipefish. My advice is that if you're going to mix pipefish with seahorses, try to find a source where they're captive bred. And that's very difficult today. Alyssa is currently working on some captive bred specimens. And if they come through with those, then I would suggest going with a captive bred if you desire to mix them. Some species of pipefish are more aggressive in feeding than seahorses, so you have to keep that in mind too.
Just for anybody in the audience who didn't kind of follow all of that, I won't try to re-explain any of the science of it, but with the pipefish that are being captive bred are at Seahorse Savvy, and if they succeed, the big deal is that when you have seahorses that are captive bred and seahorses that are wild, they just have different things that they can deal with. And the same with pipefish. So if you've got seahorses and pipefish that are captive bred, they're much more likely to be okay. And, you know, speak with the breeder. It's because of the different bacteria. You've got aquarium bacteria, you've got ocean bacteria. Sometimes they are the same, sometimes they're not. With seahorses, we have a lot of trouble with seahorses from different climates, but when they're captive bred, it just is different because they're all bred in the same facility. So anyhow, sorry to interrupt. Go ahead. Go ahead.
And this is not something like a simple quarantine will take care of, right? Because this is not like pathogen.
No, it's not, because the bacteria is kind of like you and I, where we have a certain gut flora of bacteria, and the bacteria will develop within the animal, and that flora will just become a natural flora. And Vibrio is one of the natural floras within the gut of many of the animals.
Really interesting. Really interesting. Yeah, it's just like recently I heard that people are giving advice saying that like sea anemones don't mix the wild type with captive bred one,
right?
Because they'll have chemical warfare. The wild type will always win. So this just kind of reminds me of it. I know it's not the same, but it just kind of reminds me of it.
It's not the same, but it's I see the analogy of the two. But it's a strange phenomenon. Sometimes even within my own building, if I take, say, for example, I want to consolidate 2 tanks. I've got 2 tanks that are not up to par in terms of stocking density, and I mix them. Sometimes after mixing them, I'll lose a handful of animals in the process. they even in a captive environment, they're going to develop a different gut flora in every tank.
Interesting.
You know, people think that, you know, just because they're captive bred, there's no bacteria. Nothing could be further from the truth, because you've got high densities with high organics. Bacteria is going to naturally populate in the tank.
Now, but if we mix two different, two different captive bred specimens from two different systems, would they not have different faunas within their stomach as well?
They could, or they may, or they may not.
Okay, so but it's less likely that they won't. It's more likely
Correct.
that they'll be more compatible. Got
Right.
it.
Generally speaking, when you mix captive bred with captive bred, your success is higher than when you mix wild caught with captive.
Got it. Very cool. Thank you so much.
And
now I got one more basic question. This is such a simple question. I'm sorry to cut you off, Kelly.
No. I was just going to say that was the big censure as far as pipefish, because I've always wanted to do pipefish with seahorses also, but it, you know, and Dan mentioned some other reasons not to, but in my mind, it was always that the pipefish were wild. Now Lucy's bred some, and there's other options, but anyhow, go ahead with your question, please. Go ahead.
Yeah, sorry for all these questions.
No, I love it. This is what this is about, guys. Grab your glass, come chat. All right, go ahead.
Yeah. So I know you mentioned that Erectus being, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing it right, being one of the better beginner seahorse species, right? So I noticed there's different color. Does it matter what color I picked up initially? Like, do they change color along the way, or should I go for the more colorful one right off the bat?
Buying a seahorse based on color is like buying a green chameleon and putting him in a brown bag and expecting him to stay green.
That's good news.
Okay, they're not as dramatic as cuttlefish, but cuttlefish is a great example of one that can change to different patterns. And seahorses can change their color, they can change their patterns, that, you know, the lines and the saddle markings. They can grow or get rid of the cirri, the little fronds that come off of them. But the best example I can give you is that years ago, my daughter decided, I was given some fry from a commercial aquaculture company that they didn't want, and I found out they were hybrids. And at that point in time, that was a no-no to produce. Everybody was afraid that if you were selling hybrids, all your seahorses were hybrids. So I didn't want them. And my daughter decided she was going to raise them, so I said, fine, go ahead. She was 14 at the time, and she decided to create her own decor in the tank, which was different than what we had. She put in some paisley decorations in the tank. One day I walked by the tank. I could not, when I walked by, the count, just at a glance, the count was off. And I looked and I counted the seahorses, and we were too short. I counted again, we were too short. And then I really studied the tank, and two of the seahorses had taken on the paisley pattern within the tank. And they just blended in so perfectly. And if you think about it, in the wild, the only defense that a seahorse has is really to blend in and be still. They can't outrun the predators, and they have no way to defend themselves. So nature has set them up so they can blend in, and they do that. So no matter what color you buy, odds are they're going to change to whatever color they want to be in your tank.
I'm going to jump in real quick and ask, Dan, is this not, I mentioned this in my talk because I just have the opinion, I could be wrong, but is this also species related? Meaning, like Sam got a red hippocampus sublongatus, I believe I pronounced that correctly. It stayed red because of, you know, where it was from, and that was the species.
For how long?
The whole time, always.
Okay. It's possible that they could stay that color. It is possible, but I've had customers that, you know, great
Erectus, they're not going to, right? Go ahead.
Well, not even Erectus, but I had a customer that was insisted upon buying a red seahorse, and she was pleading with me to, first time I had one, to sell one to her. And I said, look, I don't sell them by color in terms of, at least by pricing. You know, if I have that color in stock, I'll be happy to ship it. But I didn't have it, and I told her that if she went to another place to buy it, that it was going to change color within a couple of months. And so she went and spent, I don't remember, it was several $100s for a red seahorse. And 2 months later, she called me up and she said, Dan, you're correct. It did change color. Red is the toughest color to keep a seahorse. Yellow is the easiest. you know. Then you got the oranges, the greens, and what have you. But it it's very rare for a seahorse to stay that color.
So just
Now,
don't buy.
sometimes,
So go ahead.
yeah, sometimes you can get lucky and buy, for example, a red reed eye that's been wild caught and they stay red.
Mm-hmm.
Odds are 9 times out of 10 it will not.
Gotcha.
Really
Okay.
cool. Thank you.
Did you have any more seahorse questions? Because I feel badly. Like, I mean, thank you so much, Dan. Thank you, truly,
Thank you,
Dan,
Dad.
for coming
Lots of
in
great
and
information.
helping and sharing information. But I feel badly that, you know, I didn't give all these people the reef information. Did you have any more seahorse questions? I mean, feel free, because I love this. This is what it's about,
Oh,
talking.
I'm okay. I think like you and Dan hit up all my major questions. Thank you so much.
Yes,
Thank you so
and
much.
we're here.
And,
hey,
yeah.
you know, both of us. Dan actually runs a group called Seahorse Source Group, and of course, I'm here anytime you want. And I did have a question. With your older channel, the one that you did the paintballing and all that cool stuff, can people still join it, or?
Yeah, it's still up. It's Moki Chow, MOK-YI space Chow.
Okay.
Basically my real name, and I actually have I have a lot of reef videos on there as well.
Okay.
I talk about my 65-gallon reef that was before this 45, and that's how I actually got my name, Inappropriate Reefer, because I felt like I did a lot of things not the best way. But I plan to like pull some video clip from the old channel and kind of put them into one video and upload it at some point.
Well, and that was one of my questions, and I forgot to ask it. Daggone it! It was how you got the name. So thank you for answering
there it is.
And I hope that in the comments, I'm trying to keep up, but I hope we got the shrimp tank question answered, because a lot of people wanted to know about the shrimp tank, but I don't know what they wanted to know. Oh, okay. I'm not sure what they wanted to know. So if we did not, of course, you know, obviously Moki is very good at answering questions and will take care of anybody. But oh boy, we're getting static, aren't we? Dan, I'm thinking it's you. I'm gonna mute you real fast. Yeah, it was Dan. Okay, so but and Dan, thank you so much. I'm not kicking you out at all. We can talk seahorse some more, absolutely. I just want to make sure that anybody in the audience did get the chance, because I don't get these very cool reefing guests very often, so I'm just trying to kind of play it along. But anyhow, I'm not seeing any other huge questions, so all right, well, can you tell me one more thing? What about the budget build? What was your goal in that? I meant to ask that. I really wanted to know about that very quickly.
So the budget build, great question. The budget build is really not for me, at least like not initially. A while back, I made a video about how much the 45-gallon reef tank costed me, and that scared a lot of people away. Right. I got comments saying that, I'm thinking about going reef tank, but after seeing this video, I'm not going into it anymore. And this is multiple. It's not just one person. So I was like, oh man, that's bad. So I want to show that it can be done on a budget as well, because in the past, all my tanks have been on a budget. So I made it to a goal to see what kind of tank can I set up that is still respectable with a budget that's like within $200. That's kind of like the cap I gave myself. And I was able to put something together for less than $146. That's respectable. So I just finished showing the full setup and cycling of this tank, and it's up and running. It's keeping corals, keeping sea anemone. It's doing great. And from this point forward, I told them that, okay, this is where the budget part ends. I'm going to start kind of upgrading this tank to stuff that I like. For example, using a auto top-up system. It's optional, but it makes your life so much easier. I may do some kind of overflow for the Clear 70, stuff like that. But that is kind of like the inspiration for the 10-gallon budget tank. Basically, I want to set something up doesn't have to cost an arm and a leg like the 45-gallon tank I did. And I want to show them you can keep corals, you can keep fish with this. But at the same time, if you just toss a little bit more money to it, you can make life so much easier. So that's the concept behind it.
Dan, do you think that we can do a under $200 seahorse tank? Oh, I thought he was back.
I would love to see that. That would be great.
I'm sorry, were you talking to me?
Yes, I saw that you said you changed headset, so I upped your volume again. And I was just curious. One of the things that he has done is tried to show reef keepers that they can do a tank for an inexpensive amount, and you can do better with if you're willing to spend more money. But I said we need to do a really, you know, budget seahorse tank and show people how to do it, is what I'm thinking. What do you think?
I agree. I agree. You know, I'm a big advocate of going with used equipment when you can find it. There's all kinds of ways that you can cut cost. I've had to do it over the years to bring down my overhead. Otherwise, I wouldn't be around.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Okay, a couple questions from the audience. Tank Addict wants to know, what are your thoughts about putting coral into a tank that is not 100% cycled?
This is
I know.
I want to answer this one really carefully.
Yes.
Personally, I would not do it. I would not put a coral in the tank that's not cycled. Even when a tank is cycled, usually I put the hardier corals, like soft corals first, almost to test the water. If it's good, then if it looks healthy, if it's okay for a week, then I slowly add like hardier stuff, like what I did with the budget tank. That said, though, one thing I read, now I read it from one source, so don't quote me on it, double check on it, is that cycling is actually for the fish, not so much for the coral. Okay. Coral can pretty much go in as long as things are stable. Again, double check, but that's what I read. I did not test this claim. So it is what it is. But for myself, I'll play it safe. Until the tank is cycled, I don't put any corals or fish or cleanup crew into there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the safe route. And I've heard the same thing as you have, except for when it comes to like anemone. For some reason, there's special, you know, it's always better to be safe than sorry. And I very much appreciate you and your channel in that you show both sides and tell what you can do and tell what you're experienced with and don't give any crap, really, just to be real. Okay, another question was, in terms of animal species diversity, how many different species do you plan to stock in your, it says 100-gallon, but it's 150, right?
Sure. I didn't really think much about it. It's more like, okay, if I feel like this would be a good fit, it'll look nice, and I felt like, I like the interaction, then I'll add them. But I didn't really have a target goal in terms of like how many species to add. Right.
And I will mention a lot of the questions that I'm seeing we have already covered. I don't want to bother him again to tell the same answers. So we did talk about a lot of the questions already. So rewatch the video, you know. But let's see.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Going back to the cycling issue, would I not be correct in saying that if a tank is not cycled, it's probably not stable? And for corals, we generally want a stable tank?
I think that's very true. I think like one thing that a lot of people kind of hit me back on is there's the instant cycle bacteria that seems pretty popular these days. I've not used it. I don't think I will, because I find enjoyment in just kind of waiting for a tank to mature. But to answer your question, I don't know. I feel like I agree with you. The tank has to be stable, but I don't know if there's anything we could do to make it stable right off the bat.
Right. That's my only thought, is that it may be true that they can handle the ammonia or the nitrites, but
right.
I feel like the tank is not stabilized yet, so you probably have other issues as well. Because the nitrifying bacteria, especially while they're populating, are consuming a lot of the buffers and stuff. Yep. And I would think that your other parameters would go off as well.
Yep.
Actually, I just researched this because I was at the store thinking about starting my freshwater planted tank overnight, and was researching all of the initial start, you know, wham bam, you've got a tank bacteria. And what I found is that a lot of them are strains of bacteria that are kind of, I don't want to get too sciencey or technical, but they're basically like fake nitrifying bacteria that'll work for a couple of weeks and then not. Now, I can legitimately, for anybody watching, I can say Dr. Tim's and Fritz, their bacteria work. Bottom line, I've used them. They do work. Now, if you're trying to do a seahorse tank, or if you want a successful coral or etc. tank, reef tank, why rush it? Oh my gosh, I'm never going to pronounce your name right. I'm so sorry. As the Inappropriate Reefer, as Moki said, patience is his number one gift to you all. His number one advice, not advice, but his number one thing that he thinks is best. Because if you use these types of bacteria, we had a thread the other day on a seahorse post that dealt with whether it was best to have an established tank or a cycled tank. Now, you could throw some bacteria in and have a cycled tank, but it's truly not established. And, you know, so I'm just agreeing with all of you. And the research,
Absolutely agree.
if you actually look into it, the research does say, you know, yeah, you can do it, but then how are they going to fare if the bacteria is the wrong strain and doesn't last, or if, you know, the algae cycles that, you know, the fauna, the different cycles that happen that have nothing to do, well, they have to do with the bacteria, but you know what I mean, that happen in spite of the nitrogen cycle. What are going to happen to the coral then when it's covered and stuff? So anyways, just my 2 cents on that, but I appreciate your answers also. And CChem stability works great. All of those do work great, and I personally use bacteria in every single system that I have, from my reef tanks to my seahorse tanks. I don't have a problem with bottle bacteria, but you need to make sure you have the right strains, and you need to make sure that you're using them properly. Trying to avoid a cycle is not the way to use them properly. Pre-cycling media, that's in my opinion, let me say in my opinion, that's okay. And also using it to boost the bacteria in your systems on a regular basis is okay. I'm curious, do you ever use bacteria in your systems? Moki, is that it?
Not in the budget build, but in the 45 I did.
You did?
Yeah, I think it's called Bacteria 17 or something. I forgot the exact name.
Yeah,
but,
no,
I did
right.
build some bacteria.
Yeah, I mean, it's, and the more, and once you get a system going, the more diverse bacteria strains you have, the better. You know, they're doing different things, but that's one of the dangers in buying like a pre-starter bacteria, is that some of them are the strains that are sludge busters and not nitrifiers. And so it's, you know, blah, 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 blah. Okay.
I hear.
I didn't mean to take
Totally
over.
agree with you guys.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and we're just all discussing. See, this is what I really love about, and thank you again so much for coming, because I just love when we can all share, we all learn from each other. I learn stuff from your channel every single time I watch a video. Seriously. I think your videos are great. Hey, how are the tadpoles? Whatever happened?
They disappeared. I don't know. They're just gone. I checked I've seen them pretty much every other day, and all of a sudden they're just all gone. I'm hoping that they became frogs, but I seriously doubt it.
Well, we're gonna pretend they became frogs. What about the shrimp? I saw. Didn't you have something with the shrimp today? Like, didn't you find shrimp in media?
Yes. Yeah, I was cleaning up my planted tank, so I was opening up the canister filter, and I discovered a lot of baby shrimps in the, I think the bottommost section where they have, I think those media are used to kind of break up the water flow. But they're living in there. They've been living there, actually growing up, so it's really cool.
Awesome.
Like cherry shrimps. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, if anybody has any more questions or wants to join, please do it, because I've kept Moki. I'm so sorry. I'm terrible.
You got it. It was good.
Now, you should hear me pronouncing seahorse species. I'm terrible. Okay, Moki, I've kept him for way longer than the half an hour he promised me. Thank you again, and I'm sorry for keeping you so long. But check out the Inappropriate Reefer channels on Instagram, YouTube, and etc. We'll put links in the description because they're awesome. And I'm just seeing if there's any other questions. Did you have anything else you wanted to say, or?
Yeah, basically, I just want to thank you, Kelly and Dan. Thank you for all the information and spending the time with all of us. Kelly, thank you for all the information you put out. There's not a lot of seahorse information on YouTube, and I'm really glad that you started putting information out, especially on macroalgae as well. That's another part that I really want to learn more of. And I think it's nice to see content creator in that space. And I'm really happy to see that you're on Instagram. More things for me to follow. Yeah. Yay. But and Dan, thank you for hopping on. Your wealth of knowledge. I learned a lot just in this one session, and I hope to continue learning from both of you.
Yeah.
Whether seahorse, macroalgae, or just reefing in general.
Absolutely.
And YouTube and social media, stuff like that. Always interested in learning. Always want to learn more and more. Well, yeah, just I had a great time. Thank you.
This is creators working together now, and reef, seahorse, macro people all working together. This is what it's about, y'all. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. But thank you.
Salty had a quick question.
Yes, I'm sorry, Dan. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
Salty had a question about asking Moki if he watched other YouTubers' videos.
Oh, yes, that's actually an excellent question.
Oh man, thank you for bringing that up. I absolutely watch other YouTubers'
you do.
videos.
Oh, wow.
I absolutely do. I fanboy when I meet a lot of them for the first time. Actually, like when I finally get to meet like Reef dudes, Aaron's Aquarium.
Yeah.
You know, even like DC Reef, the first time I met him was awesome. Or like Mighty Nano Tank, a bunch of people. I do watch a lot of people's videos, and even like some of the people who just started out, they leave comments saying that, hey, come check out my channel. I'll always subscribe, and I start watching them. Sometimes I don't get all the notification, probably because I subscribe to too many channels, but whenever they pop up and it looks interesting, I go in and I try to leave a comment as well. And there are a lot of great creators that actually came onto the scene this year and last year, and the production value blew my mind. It's just impressive. But yes, I do watch other people's YouTube videos.
See, and that's so funny because a lot of people told me not to watch. Right.
Why?
Right. They said don't watch other videos because you're well, you know, I'm already insecure, so it was like, you know, you'll think you're not doing as well or whatever. But the more that I watch videos like yours, the more motivated I am to do things differently or better. So I don't understand that. And I will tell you that K-Town Reefer mentioned that he sees you commenting on different channels. So really cool. That's giving back. And I'm
just another guy. Nothing special, just another guy. Just happen to have put YouTube videos out, that's all.
Yes, but people appreciate that you're just the guy, you know? So, and we're going to get you some seahorses. But anyhow, all right. Well, I'm not going to take up any more of your time. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you, everybody, for watching. And we'll have him back on as often as he'll come. So, all right.
Let me know. It's fun.
Dan, anything you got to say?
Nope.
All right. Happy Wine Wednesday, everybody. Cheers.
Cheers.